You express a desire for love, but let's be honest, is it love you truly seek, or is it the feeling of being selected by someone? There's a significant distinction between loving and wanting to be loved. Many who claim to seek love are actually craving validation. They seek external affirmation to confirm what they cannot sustain internally, their own worth. They want to be noticed, admired, desired, not to strengthen bonds, but to quiet the insecurity that echoes within them. Erich Fromm, in The Art of Loving, cuts to the chase. Most don't seek to love, they seek to be loved because being loved seems easier, more comfortable. Loving demands effort, discipline, commitment. Being loved seems like a gift that resolves everything. If someone loves me, then I matter. Then I deserve to exist. And this is where the illusion begins. You don't want love. You want the feeling that you are finally enough. That someone looked at you and said, with their gaze or touch, "You are worthy." Because deep down you don't believe that on your own. Your desire for love isn't about sharing, it's about filling. Filling that internal void that no one sees but that you feel every day. A void that may have started in childhood, perhaps with rejection, abandonment, or simply from never being taught to see yourself as someone worthy of love without proving anything to anyone. So you grew up believing you need to be chosen to have value, that you need to be desired to be relevant, and every time someone chooses you, you feel for a brief moment that everything is okay, that the emptiness has disappeared, but it always comes back, doesn't it? Fromm called this immature love. It's the love that arises from the need for fusion, that urgency to merge with someone because you can't stand being with yourself. It's not desire, it's dependency. It's not connection, it's emotional addiction. And the worst part is that the culture we live in feeds this. It teaches you to look for someone to complete you, someone to save you, someone to give meaning to your existence. But that is a lie, sold as romance. True love doesn't happen when someone chooses you. It can only be born when you stop needing to be chosen. If you've made it this far, it's because, on some level, you feel this. You feel that something is wrong with the way you relate. You feel that there is something in you that still waits to be validated by someone from the outside. And maybe you are tired. Tired of begging for attention, of losing yourself, trying to be what others want, of clinging to the slightest display of affection as if it were all you have. But let me tell you one thing. This isn't to comfort you. It's to awaken you. Because as long as you don't see the root of your emptiness, you will continue to call neediness love and dependency connection. And that only destroys you from within. Most people see the problem of love primarily as the issue of being loved rather than the issue of loving, of being capable of love. Erich Fromm, in The Art of Loving, states that this sentence should not just be read, it should be digested slowly because it reveals an emotional distortion that dominates almost all modern relationships. The idea that love is something to be received rather than something to be offered. And it is precisely this inversion that transforms what should be a mutual growth experience into a desperate search for validation. Have you noticed how, when thinking about love, what comes to the minds of most people is, will someone choose me? Am I interesting enough? Am I worthy of being loved? These are legitimate questions, but they reveal a completely outward focus. In this scenario, love becomes a kind of prize, and the person or product trying to be attractive enough to deserve that prize. Fromm points out with surgical precision this misunderstanding. Being loved is the passive side of love. It is being the object of love. For many, being loved means being desired, and therein lies the problem. We confuse desire with love. We confuse being seen with being cared for. Desire is great, but it is unstable. It can ignite in 1 second and disappear in the next. And if your sense of worth is based on being desired, then you become a hostage to the gaze of the other. Your self-esteem becomes a leaf in the wind. Just one rejection, one silence, one no, and everything crumbles inside. But Fromm goes even deeper. He says that this obsession with being loved has roots in how we structure our emotional lives. From an early age, he states, most people are eager for love, but almost no one is truly capable of loving, because to love truly requires something that almost no one is willing to face: emotional maturity. Loving requires stepping outside oneself, looking at the other with responsibility, with intention, not as someone who will complete you, but as someone with whom you wish to share your wholeness. And that is rare because we are too busy trying to be noticed, trying to prove with every like, with every response, with every gesture of attention that we deserve something, that we are worth something. This confusion between loving and being loved creates fragile, anxious relationships, intense at the beginning and devastating at the end. Relationships where two individuals come together not to build something, but to extract from each other what they feel is lacking within themselves. It is not love, it is an emotional bargain, a silent pact. Give me the feeling that I am worth it, and I will give you whatever you want in return. But the bill always comes due, and in the end there is emptiness left again. But what exactly are we trying to fill with this desire to be loved? What is this internal void that makes us so susceptible to any affection that seems genuine? The answer to this lies in a central idea of Fromm's, and will be the focus of the next part: the neurotic need for fusion, the addiction to feeling complete through the other, and the price paid for it. Let's go. If this content is making sense to you, click the subscribe button and subscribe to the channel. Thank you for your support. There is a brutal difference between loving someone and needing someone. But most people who say they are in search of love are actually starving for something much more primitive: validation. The desire is not to connect, it is to feel worthy. It is not to share one's essence. It is to be chosen as a way to fill the internal void that has never been faced directly. And this is where Erich Fromm's theory becomes not only relevant, but necessary. Fromm speaks of what he calls the neurotic need for fusion. In his words, the deepest desire is not for sexual union, but the yearning for fusion to rid oneself of separation, to escape the prison of the self. Do you understand the weight of this? When you chase after someone to be loved, it is not love that you are seeking. It is fusion. It is the momentary relief from your own internal separation. You want to escape from yourself. You want someone to hold you so tightly emotionally, physically, symbolically, that for a few seconds you disappear, that the voice inside your head goes silent, that insecurity evaporates, that the fear of not being enough, of being alone, of being forgotten, vanishes. But this is impossible because no one will give you this in a lasting way. No human being will forever bear the weight of proving to you that you have worth. No relationship will heal a wound that is yours. And as long as you insist on this illusion, the illusion that being chosen transforms you into someone complete, you will live oscillating between euphoria and collapse, between idealization and frustration, between now it will happen and again it didn't work. Fromm makes it clear that this type of symbiotic fusion is not love. It is a regressive form of relationship based on dependence and not on freedom. He writes, in symbiotic love, two people become one, but neither remains as an individual. It is a union without integrity. And this is the trap, because what you call deep love may just be a camouflaged dependency. Perhaps what you feel as overwhelming passion is in fact an addiction to feeling important to someone. It is like an emotional drug. When the other chooses you, you feel alive. When they pull away, you crumble. This hunger to be chosen has deep roots. It doesn't start in adulthood, in relationships, in frustrations. It starts much earlier. It begins in childhood, in the way we were seen or not seen by those who were supposed to teach us to love ourselves. That is why what we are calling the search for love is in fact an unconscious repetition of an old pain, an attempt to do now what we could not do before, to feel unconditionally loved. And this cycle only breaks when you recognize that your pain is not in the present, it is in the past. What hurts today is the echo of what was unresolved back then. And to understand this, we need to look directly at the origin of this need. We need to go down to the emotional root of the problem, the wounded child that still lives inside you, asking for love with a choked voice. And this is exactly what we will talk about in the next part. Have you ever wondered why, even after so long, certain relationships still crumble you like you were 5 years old? Why do you cling so tightly, so quickly, to those who give you the slightest bit of attention? Why do you feel like the whole world is collapsing when someone pulls away or simply stops responding? It's not an exaggeration. It's not drama. It's a child inside you screaming silently for something it never received. Erich Fromm doesn't use the term inner child directly in The Art of Loving, but the entire emotional structure he describes points exactly to that. The formation of our way of loving comes from our childhood, from how we were loved, seen, or ignored. He states, "The experience of separation provokes anxiety. It is by far the most intense source of anguish in man, and it is precisely in childhood that this experience of separation manifests with the most brutality. The child is born completely dependent. It needs to be fed, protected, touched, validated, and above all, it needs to feel emotionally safe. When this doesn't happen, when the love received is conditional, unstable, absent, or manipulative, an invisible wound is created. And this wound doesn't disappear with time. It just hides under adult masks, forced self-sufficiency, impulsive relationships, constant need to be desired, paralyzing fear of rejection. Fromm writes about how many adults seek in relationships a symbolic way back to the womb, to the state of security and total fusion. This, according to him, is a regression, not evolution. He says, "In the childish form of love, I love because I am loved. In the mature form, I am loved because I love." The childish form of love still lives in you when you seek someone to love you so that you can then feel complete. This logic is deeply emotional, not rational. The wounded child inside you learned that to be loved, it needed to please. It needed to be useful. It needed to not be a bother. And now, as an adult, you continue trying to deserve love, trying to fit in, trying to be enough for someone to stay. But the problem was never that you weren't worthy of love. The problem was that you learned you had to strive to have it. And this shaped your entire view of affection. It shaped your way of loving, of giving yourself, of protecting yourself. What you call love is often just this child repeating old patterns. If I am perfect, they won't abandon me. If I please, they will choose me. If I am needed, they will love me. And this cycle is cruel because no matter how much you do, how much you give, how much you nullify yourself, nothing will be enough to silence the pain of the child that still believes love must be earned. And as long as you ignore this part of you, you will continue attracting relationships that only confirm this wound, relationships that do not heal, only reinforce. But there is a way out. Healing does not come from the outside. It does not come from the next relationship, the next promise, the next crumb of attention. Healing begins when you finally look at this child, not with judgment, but with compassion, when you stop demanding that others take care of what is your responsibility. And it is here that we begin to walk the path of emotional maturity, the path of true love. In the next part, we will talk about what this really means, what mature love is according to Fromm, why it is so rare, and how you can start to build it within yourself, even after so long trying to fill it from the outside. Loving truly is one of the most demanding tasks of human life. It is no coincidence that most people fail miserably when trying, because loving is not falling in love. It is not desire. It is not attachment. Loving, as Erich Fromm teaches us, is an act of courage, of conscious decision, of emotional discipline. And that is exactly why it is so rare, because it requires you to be whole before even touching the other. Fromm does not mince words. Love is an activity, not a passive affection. It is a continuous standing up, not a sudden falling. In general, the active character of love can be described by saying that to love is above all to give and not to receive. This quote is a reality check because it destroys one of the most ingrained illusions of contemporary culture, that love is something that simply happens to us, that it is something magical, involuntary, a beautiful accident. But Fromm says the opposite. Loving is an action, a practice, a constant commitment. It is a choice that is renewed every day. Even when passion runs out, even when the other fails, even when life weighs down. And here is the detail that exposes how unprepared most people are to love. You cannot offer what you have not built within yourself. Fromm states, "The problem of human existence is that of separation. Love is the answer to this problem, but only those who have overcome the separation within themselves can truly love." In other words, as long as you are internally fragmented, you will use the other as a patch. You will confuse presence with salvation. You will think that being with someone is enough, when, in fact, to love is to be with someone even when it would be easier to flee. And this is only possible when you have already resolved the most difficult conflict, the relationship you have with yourself. Loving requires presence, and presence requires maturity. Most relationships collapse not due to the absence of feeling, but due to the absence of emotional structure. People who confuse attention with love, attachment with bond, neediness with surrender. Fromm insists love is an art, and like all art, it requires learning, patience, practice, and perhaps most importantly, humility. He writes, "Anyone who intends to learn the art of loving must start in the same way one starts to learn any other art, through practice, discipline, concentration, and patience." But how many are truly willing to do this? How many are willing to stop consuming love as if it were a shelf product ready to be used and discarded? To truly love is to swim against the current of immediate culture, against the inflated ego, against the fear of vulnerability. To truly love is to have the courage to strip down emotionally without any guarantee that the other will do the same and still love. This is the point at which love ceases to be a romantic fantasy and becomes an internal revolution. When you stop wanting someone to save you and start being someone with whom you can build. When you stop begging for affection and start choosing to love consciously, clearly, responsibly, when you do not love because you need to, but because you want to. But for this to happen, it is necessary to see and abandon one of the greatest emotional traps of our times, the infantilization of love promoted by modern culture, the idea that to love is to be chosen, to please, to fit in, and that the other is there to fill our voids. In the next part, we will dissect this collective fantasy and show why it prevents so many people from living a real love. If what you are feeling now resonates with your deepest pains, my ebook, Beyond the Shadow, will take you even deeper. It explores the central ideas of Jung and provides you with practical tools to understand your emotional patterns and begin to heal from the inside out. The link is in the pinned comment. We live in a culture that packages love as a product, easy to consume, easy to discard, seductive at first glance and superficial in content. Hollywood, social media, romantic songs, everything repeats the same sweet and dangerously false message that to love is to find someone who completes you, someone who makes you happy, someone who fills your voids with presence, affection, and promises. But that is not love. It is emotional dependency disguised as poetry. And Erich Fromm knew this long before the age of algorithms. He writes, "In modern culture, most people believe that loving is simple and that the difficult part is finding the right object to love or to be loved by. This belief results from the superficial idea that loving is easy for anyone. And here lies the trap. People do not want to learn to love. They want to be loved effortlessly. They want to live intense romances without having to look within. They want to be desired without asking themselves why. They want the other as a mirror that confirms their own idealized image and not as a real encounter between two imperfect human beings. The infantilization of love begins right there. When we turn the relationship into a fantasy field where the other exists to save us from ourselves, Fromm denounces this as a structural flaw in our society. We are not taught to love. We are conditioned to desire status, beauty, approval, pleasure. And we project all of this onto the other. We want someone to prove to us that we are special, to take us out of loneliness, doubt, insecurity. But that is not love.